This box is one box with 6 different ways of use. Meanwhile, this button only does one thing. Then we have this box that many won't understand unless they watch this guide. So guess what? Stay tuned and find out exactly what all these buttons do. In Apex Legends Mobile, there are 2 types of HUD control setup. Control interface number 1, in short HUD 1. Controls interface number 2, in short HUD 2. This guide will tell you what all the buttons and windows do for HUD 2. But to be honest, HUD 2 is just basically an optimized version of HUD 1. What I mean by that is, see these weapon boxes here at HUD 1? These 2 buttons are combined in HUD 2, making it quicker and easier to switch weapons. Anyway, let's now talk about what all the buttons and windows do. Before we actually go into the buttons, let me cover this particular window first, because this will actually help you in setting your buttons up. But if you already know what this window does, then just skip to this timestamp. First of all, in this HUD adjustment screen is where you can move everything around. Most things that you can see on your screen can actually be customized to your liking. If you're looking for the best HUD setup though, stay till the very end, because I have another guide for that. Moving on, first things first, when a button has this red stroke over it, it means it's switched off and you won't be able to see or use it in the game. Some buttons like this left ping button is off by default. To turn him on, simply tap on the button and make sure this box does not have a check on it. This button allows you to choose between the preset 3 and 4 finger HUD layout, and this copy button over here allows you to copy your HUD from MP to BR and BR to MP. However, this system is a little bit complicated though, so what I've done is I've made a separate guide for you guys to learn from. Link in the description below. This slider changes the size of the button. This slider changes the opacity of a button. Turning this all the way down will make a button barely visible. And these arrow keys are adjustment arrows. So if you want to move a button but only move it a tiny bit to line it, perfectly with something else, it's best to use these arrows instead. This box allows you to choose between 3 different HUD layouts. Like here in layout 1 for example, I have my own setup. Feel free to screenshot it, but I have a guide that explains exactly why I put all the buttons where they are. But yeah, that's at the end of the video. For the purpose of this video, we're going to click on layout 2, as this layout has a default setting, which is the first setup you'll see when you first log into the game. So click layout 2, and basically anytime you make any changes, click save and it will save to layout 2. And last on this window, you can click this arrow to minimize this window. This one is your match info panel. This is your kill count, this is your assist count, number of squads remaining including yours, and this one tells you exactly how many players are left. However, this figure changes to a question mark when there are only 3 squads left. This is the kill feed. So basically it shows you who or what is killing who. Now this is your weapons box. This one box is made of 4 clickable components. This one is to put your weapon away. This is your weapon interaction button. This can be used in 2 different ways. Quick tap allows you to switch to your other weapon quickly. Press and hold push your gun away. When your weapon is stowed away, you can press any of these 2 buttons to pull out that specific gun. This button at the top is your select fire mode button. This basically changes the gun's shooting mode. For example, R301 is fully automatic by default. Pressing this button will change it to single fire mode. This is your right ping button. This is your left ping button. These 2 buttons do the exact same thing, which is to mark a location. There are 4 ways to use these buttons. Quick tap is to mark a location as go to. Double tap is to mark an enemy location, and spam tapping it will mark enemy location repeatedly. You can also press and hold it to open a ping wheel and drag the ping button to that ping to use it. There's more to this ping button, which I'll have to cover in another guide, my full settings guide, as it's a little bit more complicated. Basically, there's this ping wheel, and then there's also this big ping wheel. Yeah, full settings guide link in the description below. Anyway, this is a loot box window. Whenever you get close enough to an item or a death box, this window is the one that you'll use to pull items from. By default, you will automatically pick items up whenever you get close to them. This switch allows you to turn that off and back on mid-game. And this X mark closes the window. When you click this X mark, that also actually turns off auto loot. When you click X and get close to a lootable item, this hand box will pop out. Press it to open the box. Note though, if you switch auto loot off using this switch, when you open this box by tapping the hand icon, it still will not pick things up until you switch it on. This switch is basically an override button. This eyeball thing is your free camera button. This allows you to look around without actually moving your character model at all. This button only pops up if you're in third-person perspective mode, or if you're in FPP when you're in skydive mode. This is your zoom button. button, used for two things. One, when you're in the dropship waiting to jump, you can press and hold this button to zoom in. Number two, changing scope zooms when you have a scope that has multiple zoom variations when you aim down sight. For example, this 2x, 4x scope allows you to switch zoom levels whenever you aim down sight. This is the button that will let you switch between the two. Likewise, when you have the Kraber sniper, this button will also pop up when you aim down sight. This is the quick optic switch button. Clicking this button will open up this window. This window will show all the scopes that you currently have in your bag, allowing you to quickly change scopes for the weapon you currently have equipped without even going into your bag. This window can also be moved away from the button itself, allowing you to customize your HUD even further. This is your aim down sight button, ADS for short. This is your throwing mode button. You can switch between high arc throw, which is great for throwing something over obstacles, and low arc throw, for when you just want to quickly drop something very near you. This is the interact button. This is basically how you use things such as doors, control panels, zip lines, as well as picking up caustics canisters. This is your ultimate ability button. This is your tactical ability button. And this is your tactical ability select mode button. This basically changes the way your tactical ability works. For example, Mirage's tactical ability sends out a decoy to run to a specific spot. And once that decoy arrives at that location, it will either stand there or copy Mirage's player movements. And this button switches between those modes. This is the hip fire only button, and this is the right fire button. This right fire button has multiple ways of use, which I also cover in my full settings guide and my 4-finger claw guide. This is the jump button, this is the reload button, crouch button, and the melee button. This is the heal wheel button and has two different ways to use. Single tap allows you to quickly use the current equipped item, or press, hold, and drag up to switch to a different item. More ways to use in my full settings guide. And this right here is your ordnance wheel button, which works exactly the same as this heal button over here. This is your vitals window. This is your shield HP. This is your base HP. At the top right, these icons will tell you what shield and helmet you're currently wearing. And to the left is your Evo shield damage counter. This basically tells you how much damage you need to do left to upgrade your shield. Full info on my shield system guide. Link in the description below. This is a window that pops up when you're healing, reviving a teammate, using a survey beacon, or a respawn beacon. Basically anything that has a timer to use. And this button is to cancel that action. The window behind it, however, is hella confusing. Let's move this countdown bar so we can see it. At the time of recording this video, during early access, it wasn't working properly for HUD 2. However, let's go into HUD 1 to show you real quick. Alright, basically see this button over here? Clicking this brings up this window. This window is the attachments quick drop window. This window will show all the attachments that you currently have in your backpack, and tapping on any of these attachments will quickly drop it to the floor. Alright, back to HUD 2. This is the cancel button. This cancels mechanical features of the game. For example, when clicking on Caustic's ultimate ability, he brings out this gas grenade ready for you to throw. Pressing this cancel button puts that grenade away and cancels the ult. Same thing with bolt action weapons such as this Peacekeeper shotgun. Okay, so by default, the right fire button, when used with a bolt type weapon like the Peacekeeper, can be pressed and held. Doing this makes you aim down sight, and as soon as you release your finger, your weapon fires. And this cancel button basically cancels that and prevents you from shooting. This is your left fire button. This button has two different uses. One is hip fire. Two is exactly the same as this cancel button, but only to cancel your aim down sight with bolt type weapons. So basically, when you press and hold your right fire button down with any bolt type weapons, the left fire button turns red, and when pressed, it cancels your aim and you won't fire your weapon at all. This is your left D-pad. This moves your character to different directions. This is the sprint threshold. Whenever you pull your left D-pad up, your character walks. And as soon as your finger hits this threshold, your character sprints. And this is the auto run threshold. I don't want to call it auto sprint because it's not entirely just for sprinting. And it's also called auto run in the settings. Dragging your finger up to this button will lock your movement, allowing you to keep moving forward until you pull that left D-pad to a different direction. It does lock you to sprinting, but this auto run feature cancels heals. However, when you auto run first and then heal, you'll auto walk forward and keep healing. Hence why it's not auto sprint. This right here is the perspective button. This button allows you to switch between third person perspective and first person perspective. And this button is only visible in TPP game modes. This button opens up your backpack. Here are all the current equipped items. Tapping on an empty slot will send a request for that particular item in the chat box. This tab over here is your abilities info window, and this tab is for your perks window. This is the emote button. Press and hold and drag to select your emote. And this emote right here is actually the weapon inspection mode. This is your team vitals panel. This is the settings button. This button opens up the comms window. This is your mic functions button, and this is your minimap. Tapping the minimap opens the full map window. In this window are more features and buttons. First of all, you can zoom in and out by pinching the the map with your fingers, or you can use this slider over here instead. You can also tap anywhere in the map to ping a location and tap this button to cancel that ping. This button pings your current exact location, and this button centers the map based on where you currently are when you have the map zoomed in and away from where you are. Then we have these buttons over here. This one brings up all the info regarding the icons that you see on the map, and this one is your missions tracker. Tapping on this tab on the right shows you all the missions you have, and checking these boxes will put these missions into the tracker tab, allowing you to see your tracked missions quicker. Then we have this button that pops up only when you're in the dropship. This button marks all the replicators on the map as well as all the material stations near them. Woo! I bet you're wondering where the hell to place everything, right? Here's a guide to help you with that. Oh! Maple syrup won it! GG's!